They say funerals bring people together. My wife brought her phone, her contempt, and a hangover that reeked of expensive vodka and cheap decisions. I'm Eli Brooks, and I've always been the guy who fixes things. Cars, relationships, broken promises, you name it. I've tried to make it work. I run Brooks Auto Body on the south side of Albany, where honest work still means something, and a handshake carries weight. At least that's what my dad taught me before cancer ate him alive over 8 brutal months. The funeral home smelled like lilies and regret. Dad's casket sat there, polished mahogany reflecting the dim lighting, while I tried to hold myself together for the dozen people who actually showed up. Vanessa sat beside me in her designer black dress, the one she'd bought specifically for Instagram photos, checking her phone every 30 seconds like she was expecting a call from the president. "Could you maybe put that away?" I whispered during the pastor's opening remarks. She gave me that look, the one that said I was being unreasonable for asking her to show basic human decency. "I'm handling work stuff, Eli. Some of us can't just shut down our lives because—" The phone buzzed. She actually answered it. "Hey girl, no, I'm still stuck at this thing," she said, loud enough that Mrs. Patterson in the front row turned around with a scandalized expression. "Yeah, I know, it's so depressing. I'll be out of here soon." I stared at her, waiting for some sign that she realized what she'd just done. Nothing. She hung up and went back to scrolling through social media like she was sitting in a coffee shop instead of at my father's funeral. That's when the text came in. I saw her typing, saw the little satisfied smirk cross her face as she hit send. My phone buzzed in my pocket. The message read, "You're being way too dramatic about this. Try not to cry in public, it's embarrassing." I read it twice, certain I'd misunderstood. But there it was, sent from the woman sitting 18 inches away from me, while my father's body lay 10 feet in front of us. The woman I'd been married to for 6 years. The woman who'd eaten Sunday dinners at this same man's table, who'd borrowed money from him when her marketing startup was failing, who'd called him Dad when she needed something. My hands started shaking. Not from grief, from pure, crystalline rage. I typed back, "Enjoy your night out." She glanced at her phone, shrugged, and went back to scrolling through Instagram stories. That's when I knew. This wasn't just disrespect or poor timing. This was who she really was, stripped of all the pretense and fake concern she'd been showing for months. While I was watching the only parent I had left waste away in a hospital bed, she was planning her social calendar. The pastor finished his remarks. The handful of Dad's old friends from the garage came up to shake my hand and tell me stories I'd heard 100 times, but never got tired of hearing. Vanessa stood beside me, playing the grieving daughter-in-law for anyone watching, but I could see her checking the time on her phone. "I need to leave early," she whispered, as the last person walked away. "Nina's having people over, and I promised I'd be there by 9. It's my father's funeral. The funeral part is over, Eli. Now it's just people standing around being sad. That's not going to bring him back." I watched her walk away, heels clicking on the funeral home's polished floor, already pulling out her phone to text someone. Probably Nina, her best friend and partner in narcissism, or maybe Derek, the gym owner she'd been getting fitness advice from for the past 3 months. Yeah, I knew about Derek. Hard not to when your wife starts working out at 5 a.m. and coming home smelling like a different brand of cologne. Hard not to when the credit card bills show charges at restaurants I'd never been to and hotels in our own city. Hard not to when your elderly neighbor, Mrs. Dorsey, mentions seeing that nice young man with the fancy car, leaving your house while you're at work. I'd been planning to confront her about it after the funeral, maybe try to work things out like I always did. But that text changed everything. You don't mock a man's grief and expect forgiveness. You don't treat someone's father's death like an inconvenience and expect to keep playing house. I drove home alone, following the same route Dad had taught me when I was 16 and learning to drive his old Buick. The townhouse we'd bought 3 years ago sat dark, except for the porch light, looking exactly like what it was, a place where two people lived separate lives under the same roof. I sat in my truck for a long time, engine ticking as it cooled, staring at the windows of what was supposed to be our home. My phone buzzed with notifications. Vanessa was already posting photos from Nina's party, cocktails and fake smiles and captions about living life to the fullest. At 11:47 p.m., she posted a selfie with Derek and Nina at some downtown club, all three of them grinning like idiots. Drinks raised to the camera. The caption read, "No tears, just cheers. Life's too short to waste on drama." She posted that while I was sitting in my truck, still in my funeral suit, trying to figure out how my marriage had become such a complete joke. That's when I made the decision that would change everything. I pulled out my phone and called Lou Hendricks, my shop foreman and the closest thing to a brother I'd ever had. Lou had done time upstate for aggravated assault back in his 20s. Some guy had been beating his girlfriend in a bar parking lot, and Lou had introduced the guy's face to a brick wall. He'd learned two things in prison: how to keep his mouth shut and how to move fast when the situation called for it. "Eli? Jesus, man, it's almost midnight. You okay?" "Lou, I need a favor, a big one. Name it. I need to move some furniture. Tonight." There was a pause. Lou had been around long enough to read between the lines. "How much furniture are we talking about?" "All of it." Another pause, longer this time. "Where are we moving it to?" "Storage unit on Central Avenue. I'll text you the address." "What about Vanessa?" I looked at the club photo again, at my wife's arm wrapped around Derek's waist, at the timestamp showing it was taken 20 minutes after she'd left our house. "What about her?" Lou showed up at 1:30 a.m. with his pickup truck and two guys from his neighborhood, Tommy and Marcus, both built like refrigerators and smart enough not to ask questions. I'd already called Speedy Movers, a 24-hour service that specialized in emergency relocations, and didn't care why you needed to move furniture in the middle of the night as long as your credit card cleared. "You sure about this, boss?" Lou asked as we stood in my living room looking at 6 years of accumulated marriage. "This is some serious bridge-burning shit." "She burned the bridge first," I said, showing him the text from the funeral. "I'm just cleaning up the ashes." Lou read it twice, shook his head, and cracked his knuckles. "All right then. Where do we start?" We started with everything that mattered, the leather sectional my dad had helped me pick out. The dining room table where I'd eaten Sunday dinners alone for the past year, while Vanessa was working late or at the gym. The 65-inch TV I'd saved up for 6 months to buy. The bedroom furniture, including the mattress she'd been sharing with Derek. "Take the mattress," I told Tommy as he started to leave it. "She can figure out her own sleeping arrangements." The movers worked like ghosts, wrapping everything in blankets and wheeling it out to their truck. Lou handled the smaller stuff: dishes, books, the coffee maker I'd bought myself for Christmas. We left her things untouched: her clothes, her makeup collection that took up half the bathroom counter, her exercise equipment that had never been used for actual exercise. Mrs. Dorsey appeared in her window around 2:30 a.m., watching the parade of furniture leaving my house. I walked over and knocked on her door. "Eli, honey, what's going on?" she asked, tightening her bathrobe against the cold. "Getting divorced, Mrs. Dorsey thought you should know in case anyone asks." Her expression shifted from concern to something that looked almost like relief. "Oh, sweetie, I'm sorry, but, well, maybe it's for the best." "What do you mean?" She hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. "That man with the fancy car? He's been coming around for months, usually right after you leave for work. And she's been bringing other people too. Parties, loud music, people I've never seen before. Why didn't you tell me? I thought about it, believe me. But marriage troubles aren't my business. Though after what I saw tonight." She shook her head. "Going out partying on the night of your father's funeral? That's just wrong." I thanked her and went back to supervising the move. By 3:45 a.m., the house was empty except for Vanessa's belongings and the furniture that had been there when we moved in. The movers loaded the last box, I paid them in cash, and they disappeared into the night. Lou and I stood in the echoing emptiness of what used to be my living room. "Now what?" he asked. I pulled out the divorce papers I'd had drawn up 3 weeks ago, back when I was still hoping to handle this like a civilized adult. I'd never filed them, kept thinking maybe we could work things out. But that was before the text. That was before no tears, just cheers. I set the papers on the kitchen counter, weighed down with the spare house key she'd given Derek. Then I wrote a note on the back of a takeout menu. "Vanessa, enjoy your new freedom. The locks have been changed. Your belongings are untouched. The divorce papers are self-explanatory. Don't contact me unless it's through lawyers. Eli." "Think she'll get the message?" Lou asked, reading over my shoulder. "Oh, she'll get it." I left one lamp on in the living room, casting long shadows across the empty hardwood floors. It looked like a crime scene, which seemed appropriate. Lou drove me to the Comfort Inn on Western Avenue, where I'd booked a room for the week. We sat in his truck in the parking lot, watching the sun start to rise over the city. "You know she's going to lose her shit when she gets home," Lou said. "I'm counting on it. And you know she's going to try to make you look like the bad guy. Let her try." My phone had been buzzing with notifications all night. More photos from the club, videos of Vanessa and her friends doing shots. Derek's arm around her waist in every single picture. The timestamp on the last post showed 4:12 a.m. They were probably just leaving the club now, maybe heading back to Derek's place, or maybe coming to my house to continue the party. I turned off my phone and handed Lou the spare key to my shop. "If anyone comes looking for me tomorrow, tell them I'm taking a few days off to handle family business." What if Vanessa shows up? She won't. She's never set foot in the shop, not once in 6 years. Says it's too dirty. Lou laughed, but there wasn't much humor in it. "Man, I never liked her, but I didn't think she was this cold." Neither did I. That was the truth. I'd married Vanessa because she was smart and ambitious and beautiful, because she made me want to be better than just another guy who fixed cars for a living. She'd talked about traveling together, starting a family, building something meaningful. But somewhere along the way, I'd become an inconvenience in her life, something to be managed rather than loved. The funeral text wasn't the beginning of the end. It was just the moment I finally admitted what had been true for months. My wife didn't just not love me anymore. She actively despised me. I checked into the hotel room and collapsed on the bed without taking off my clothes. My phone stayed off. Whatever explosion was about to happen, I didn't want to witness it in real time. I slept for 12 hours straight and woke up to a world where I was no longer married in anything but name. I turned my phone back on at 6 p.m. the next day. 47 missed calls, 63 text messages, voicemails that started apologetic and escalated to screaming threats, social media notifications that told the whole story without me having to read a single message. Vanessa had come home at 4:30 a.m. to find an empty house. The first text, sent at 4:33 a.m. "What the hell happened to our furniture?" By 5 a.m., she'd figured out what I'd done. "You can't just take everything and leave." "This is my house too." By 6 a.m., she'd found the divorce papers. "You're insane if you think you can divorce me over a stupid text message." By 8 a.m., she'd realized I wasn't coming back. "Fine. You want to play games? I can play games too." And by noon, she'd launched her counterattack. I drove to Murphy's Tavern, the dive bar 3 blocks from my shop where half my customers ended their workday. The place smelled like cigarettes and broken dreams, exactly what I needed. I ordered a beer and tried to process the nuclear fallout my marriage had become. "Holy shit, Eli." Jimmy Kowalski, one of my regulars, slapped me on the back hard enough to spill my beer. "I heard about you and Vanessa." "Dude, that's cold as hell what she did." "What did you hear?" "Nina posted the whole thing on Instagram. Video of Vanessa crying in your empty house, talking about how you abandoned her in her time of need. and took everything while she was supporting you through your grief. Real Oscar-worthy performance. My stomach dropped. She made a video? Oh man, you haven't seen it? It's everywhere. She's saying you had some kind of mental breakdown after your dad died and just disappeared with all the furniture, making it sound like you're having a psychotic episode or something. Jimmy showed me his phone. There was Vanessa, sitting on the floor of our empty living room, tears streaming down her face, talking to Nina's camera about how worried she was about my mental health, how I'd been acting strange since Dad got sick, how she was afraid of what I might do next. The video had been shared 847 times. The comments were brutal. Poor Vanessa. What kind of monster abandons his wife like that? He obviously can't handle his emotions like an adult. She's better off without him. He sounds psychotic. Someone should do a wellness check on this guy. I handed the phone back to Jimmy and ordered another beer. For what it's worth, Jimmy said, most of us know that's bullshit. Your dad just died and she was out partying the same night? That's not grief support, that's just being a bitch. But not everyone saw it that way. Over the next 2 hours, 3 more people came up to me with variations of the same story. Vanessa was playing the victim perfectly, painting herself as the abandoned wife of an unstable man who'd stolen their furniture in a fit of grief-induced madness. My phone rang. Derek's number. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. You need to bring that furniture back, Derek said without preamble. Vanessa's a wreck, and you're making yourself look like a complete psycho. Funny, I don't remember asking for your opinion. Look, I get it. You're upset about your dad, and you're taking it out on her, but this isn't the way to handle it. The casual condescension in his voice made my vision go red. This was the guy who'd been screwing my wife for months, and he was giving me marriage advice. Here's a better idea, I said. Why don't you comfort her at your place? I hear you're good at that. Silence on the other end. Yeah, Derek, I know. I've known for months. The only question is whether you're stupid enough to think this conversation is going to end with me apologizing. Eli, man, it's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. You want to play house with my wife? Congratulations, she's all yours. But the furniture stays with me. I hung up and ordered another beer. The bartender, a woman in her 50s with arms like a longshoreman, leaned across the bar. Couldn't help overhearing, she said. Your wife's been in here a few times over the past couple months. Always with some musclehead guy, always talking loud about how her husband doesn't understand her. What did she say? Nothing specific, but the tone was clear. She was shopping around, if you know what I mean, acting like she was single, flirting with every guy who looked twice. This was news to me. Vanessa had always claimed she hated dive bars, said they were beneath her. But apparently, she'd been using Murphy's as her personal dating service. She ever bring the musclehead back to your place? The bartender asked. Probably. My neighbor saw him coming around a lot. Then you did the right thing. Woman wants to act single. She can live single. I was starting to feel better about my decision when Lou walked in, looking grim. We got a problem, boss. What kind of problem? Derek showed up at the shop this afternoon. Started running his mouth to some of the customers, telling them you're having a breakdown and they should be careful about leaving their cars with someone who's mentally unstable. The beer turned sour in my mouth. What did you tell him? I told him to get the hell off our property before I called the cops. But the damage might be done. Mrs. Chen was there picking up her Honda, and she looked pretty spooked. This was escalating beyond a simple divorce. Vanessa and Derek weren't just playing victim. They were actively trying to destroy my business. There's more, Lou said. Nina's been posting videos all day, making it sound like you're some kind of dangerous stalker. She's got this whole narrative going about how Vanessa's afraid to go home because she doesn't know what you might do next. I pulled up Nina's Instagram. Sure enough, she'd turned my divorce into a multi-part drama series. Video after video of her comforting Vanessa, talking about red flags and emotional abuse, and how scared they both were. The comments were getting worse. Call the police. This guy sounds dangerous. Vanessa should get a restraining order. Someone needs to check on her safety. This is what emotional abuse looks like. I was being painted as an unhinged stalker who'd had a psychotic break and stolen furniture in a fit of rage. Meanwhile, Derek was actively sabotaging my business, and Vanessa was playing the terrified victim while posting selfies from his apartment. "What do you want to do?" Lou asked. I finished my beer and stood up. The bar had gotten quieter, and I could feel people staring. Word was spreading fast in a city this size, and the story being told wasn't mine. I want to remind them why you don't start a war with someone who knows where all the bodies are buried. What does that mean? I smiled for the first time in 2 days. It means Vanessa and Derek just made a very expensive mistake. I spent the next morning in my office at the shop, going through 6 years of marriage with the methodical precision I usually reserved for rebuilding engines. Bank statements, credit card bills, phone records, social media posts, text messages, everything I'd ignored or explained away during the slow death of my marriage. The evidence was damning. Hotel charges at the Marriott downtown, always on days when I was working late. Dinner receipts from restaurants she'd claimed to be at with girlfriends, except the receipts showed 2 meals, and her girlfriends had posted photos of themselves at home those same nights. Gym membership charges at Derek's place going back 8 months, even though she'd told me she was working out at the women's only place across town. But the real gold mine was her phone bill. We'd been on a family plan, which meant I had access to call and text logs. The pattern was clear, hundreds of texts and calls to Derek's number, usually during work hours when I was at the shop. The frequency had increased dramatically after Dad's diagnosis, like she'd decided his illness was the perfect cover for her affair. I screenshot everything, organized it into folders, and backed it up in 3 different places. Then I started making phone calls. "Mrs. Patterson? This is Eli Brooks. I was wondering if you could help me with something." Mrs. Patterson had been Dad's neighbor for 30 years and had the kind of memory that retained every detail of every conversation she'd ever had. "Of course, dear. How are you holding up?" "I'm doing okay, thanks. I was wondering if you remembered what time Vanessa left the funeral home on Tuesday night." "Oh, yes. She left right after the service ended." "Maybe 8:30? She seemed to be in quite a hurry. Said something about meeting friends." "Did she mention where?" "She was on the phone when she walked past me. I heard her say something about Nina's place, and then something about going downtown later. I thought it was odd, leaving so quickly after your father's service." I thanked her and called the funeral director, Mr. Henley. He confirmed that the service had ended at 8:25 p.m. and that Vanessa had been notably eager to leave. He'd found it unprofessional, but hadn't said anything out of respect for my grief. The timeline was perfect. Vanessa had left my father's funeral at 8:30 p.m. and posted her first party photo at 9:15 p.m. 45 minutes from supporting her grieving husband to no tears, just cheers. Next, I called my lawyer, Janet Morrison, who'd handled the purchase of our house and had been preparing the divorce papers. "Eli, I saw the social media posts. Are you okay?" "I'm fine, Janet. But I need to accelerate the divorce timeline." "Because of the furniture thing?" "Look, I understand you were upset, but that might complicate." "Because of the adultery thing. I've got evidence." I spent an hour walking Janet through the documentation. Hotel receipts, suspicious charges, phone records, the timeline from the funeral. By the end of the call, her tone had shifted completely. "This is actually very helpful," she said. "New York is a no-fault divorce state, but adultery can still affect asset distribution and alimony claims. If she tries to paint you as unstable or abusive, this evidence shows a pattern of deception and infidelity that predates any alleged breakdown." "What about Derek interfering with my business?" "That could be tortious interference, depending on what." he said, and whether you can prove damages. Do you have any witnesses? Lou heard the whole thing, and Mrs. Chen looked pretty spooked when she left. Document everything. And Eli, stop engaging with them on social media or in person. Let me handle the legal side while you handle the public relations side. What do you mean, public relations? I mean you need to tell your story before their version becomes the accepted truth. That afternoon, I drove to the Albany Times-Union and asked to speak with Sarah Martinez, the reporter who covered local business news. She'd done a story about my shop 2 years ago when we'd restored a 1967 Camaro for a veteran who'd lost his legs in Afghanistan. Eli, good to see you. I heard about your father. I'm sorry for your loss. Thanks, Sarah. I was wondering if you'd be interested in a follow-up story about how local businesses handle family crises. She raised an eyebrow. This wouldn't have anything to do with the social media drama that's been making the rounds, would it? You've seen it? Hard to miss. Your wife's friend has been pretty active on Instagram. Makes for compelling viewing. I'll give her that. I showed Sarah the documentation. Not everything. I wasn't ready to air all my dirty laundry in the newspaper, but enough to establish the timeline and the facts. Vanessa partying while I was at Dad's funeral, Derek interfering with my business, the systematic campaign to paint me as unstable. This is a very different story than what's being told online, Sarah said. That's why I'm here. I'm not looking for sympathy, and I'm not trying to trash my wife in public, but I'm also not going to let them destroy my business with lies. What would you want me to focus on? The truth. That grief makes people react in different ways. That sometimes marriages end badly, but that doesn't make either person a monster. And that local businesses shouldn't be collateral damage in personal disputes. Sarah agreed to write a balanced piece focusing on the challenges small business owners face during personal crises. It wouldn't be a hit piece on Vanessa, but it would establish the basic facts and give my side of the story a platform. That evening, I met Lou at Murphy's to plan our next move. Derek came by again today, Lou said. This time he brought a friend. Big guy, lots of tattoos, kept staring at the customers like he was memorizing faces. Intimidation? That's what it felt like. I called the cops, but by the time they showed up, Derek and his friend were gone. This was escalating beyond social media drama. Derek was actively trying to hurt my business, and now he was bringing muscle to make his point. What do you think we should do? Lou asked. I thought about it while I finished my beer. Vanessa and Derek had made this personal when they decided to attack my livelihood. They declared war when Derek started showing up at my shop with threats and intimidation. I think, I said finally, it's time to remind them that I know this city better than they do. What does that mean? It means Derek's gym is having its grand reopening party this weekend. Big event, lots of publicity, local news coverage. So it would be a shame if something went wrong with their security system. Lou grinned. You still got contacts at Sentinel Security? I don't just have contacts, Lou. I have the master service contract. Derek had made a crucial mistake. In his rush to open his fancy new gym, he'd hired the cheapest security company he could find. Sentinel Security subcontracted their installation work to local businesses, including mine. I'd installed the alarm system, the electronic locks, and the security cameras at Derek's gym 3 months ago. Which meant I had the master codes, the system blueprints, and intimate knowledge of every vulnerability in their setup. This feels like it might be illegal, Lou said. Nothing illegal about a security system malfunction, I replied. Happens all the time. Derek's gym reopening was scheduled for Friday night at 8 p.m. big party, local news coverage, free drinks, and a chance for Derek to parade himself as some kind of hometown savior. For weeks, he'd been all over social media, posting photos in that too-tight suit, spouting garbage about transforming lives and building champions. Anyone who knew him could see through it. But most people don't look too hard when there's free alcohol involved. Thursday evening, while the world thought I was asleep, I was sitting at my desk with a cup of cold coffee and a folder thick with documents. Sentinel Security required technicians to file detailed blueprints of every system we installed: wiring, power relays, lock controls, and even maintenance schedules. It was all perfectly above board. I hadn't hacked into anything. I hadn't stolen a single byte. I was the authorized service tech. The knowledge was mine to use. Derek had paid me once to install his system. He never thought about what that meant in the long run. I studied the blueprints until the paper edges curled under my fingertips. 3 vulnerabilities. That was all I needed. First, the main power relay, which could be tripped remotely. Cut the power, and the whole place would plunge into darkness. Second, the electronic locks. They were wired to default to unlocked during power failures, a safety feature Derek hadn't questioned because he was too busy flexing in the mirror. Third, the fire alarm system, calibrated so sensitively that even a modest heat source near a sensor could trigger a full evacuation. The plan was elegant, not illegal, not violent, just precision. Friday night, 7:45 p.m., I sat in my truck across the street, windows cracked, watching the circus unfold. A news van had parked out front. A red carpet led to the glass doors. A DJ spun upbeat tracks while Derek shook hands and slapped backs like a politician in training. Vanessa was there too, playing the doting girlfriend, clutching a champagne glass, filming Instagram stories about supporting local business. I wondered if she believed a single word of it. The crowd swelled to 50, maybe more. At exactly 8:15 p.m., I tapped the button. The building went black. Gasps rose from inside. A woman screamed. Phones lit up one by one, weak glows of white bobbing through the gloom. Emergency lights flickered on, painting the scene in deep red. People moved awkwardly, shadows sliding across the walls. Derek darted from one end of the room to the other, barking orders, his expensive suit damp with sweat under the glow. Then the second part. Without power, the locks reset. Doors swung open. Guests wandered where they weren't supposed to, into staff rooms, storage closets, and eventually Derek's office. Through binoculars, I saw them stop, point, laugh nervously. They'd found his wall. Photos of Derek with women, many of them clearly intimate. A shrine to conquest, not commitment. Vanessa wasn't in a single one. At 8:30, I triggered the final step. The heat source I'd planted weeks earlier did its job, tricking the sensor into thinking a blaze had started. Sirens shrieked, deafening and relentless. Strobes flashed. The fire department was there in under 10 minutes, lights spinning red and blue across the parking lot. The police weren't far behind. Guests poured out in clusters, stumbling across the pavement, heels snapping, hair out of place. Someone filmed Derek screaming at the fire chief, spittle flying as he demanded to know why his legitimate business was being harassed. By 9:30, the party was dead. The power came back on eventually, but most of the crowd had gone home. The news van had already packed up. Derek stood in the lot, fists clenched, tie yanked loose, jaw tight like he was ready to murder the night itself. I drove home smiling. The fallout was immediate. Guests uploaded shaky videos of the blackout, the evacuation, Derek's tantrum. Nina, the wannabe influencer, posted a dozen Instagram stories showing every chaotic second. But the real nail in the coffin came from the photos snapped in Derek's office. Someone uploaded a shot of the trophy wall, a dozen women, posed with Derek in varying states of intimacy. The internet did the rest. The comments rolled in. Looks like Derek's got a type and it's not commitment. Vanessa girl, please tell me you've seen this. This guy's a clown. Who runs a gym and cheats on half the town? By Saturday morning, Derek's Google rating had dropped to 1 star. Reviews poured in calling the place unprofessional, poorly managed, a disaster waiting to happen. The electrical problem was explained away as a fluke, but reputations don't bounce back from that kind of exposure. Not in a small city like Millport. Vanessa's feed went dark. No selfies, no gym shots, no supporting my man captions. Silence. I was on my second cup of coffee at the kitchen table, scrolling through reviews, savoring the chaos, when my phone rang. Unknown number. Eli? Her voice. Shaky, unpolished. It's Vanessa. Every instinct screamed at me to hang up, but curiosity held my thumb back. What do you want? We need to talk. No, we don't. Talk to my lawyer. Please, she begged. Just meet me. Somewhere public. Just to talk. There was something in her voice I hadn't heard in years. Desperation. Not the performative kind she used to wield like a weapon. Real desperation. Why would I want to do that? Because Derek's been lying to me. About a lot of things. I almost laughed. And you're just figuring this out now? Her breath hitched. Eli, please. I know I screwed up. I know I hurt you. But I think I'm in over my head here. I stayed silent. He's been taking money from my accounts, she whispered. And he's not who I thought he was. I sighed. You'll have to be more specific than that. I can explain. Just please. Murphy's Tavern, 2:00, neutral ground. I'll tell you everything against my better judgment, I agreed. Neutral ground, plenty of eyes, and Lou would be there too. The hours crawled. Part of me thought it was another trap. Another ploy to pull me into Derek's orbit, make me look petty and jealous. But there had been something raw in her voice, something even she couldn't fake. At 1:50, I parked outside Murphy's. The neon sign buzzed faintly above the door. The afternoon crowd was thin, a few regulars at the bar, one guy feeding the jukebox quarters like it was still 1995. Vanessa sat in a booth, looking like she hadn't slept since the disaster. No makeup, sweater wrinkled, hair pulled into a loose bun. She looked nothing like the Instagram persona she'd curated for years. She looked human again. You look like hell, I said as I slid in across from her. Thanks, she muttered. That's exactly what every woman wants to hear. Lou sat at the bar, close enough to intervene, far enough away to pretend he wasn't eavesdropping. So, I said, folding my hands. What's Derek been lying about? She opened her phone with trembling hands and turned the screen toward me. He said he just needed loans until his business took off. 500 here, 1,000 there. But look, her savings account balance, $800, down from 15 grand. Jesus, Vanessa. She swallowed hard. And that's not the worst part. She flipped to her credit card history, hotel charges, restaurants, a jewelry store receipt for $3,000. Not for you, I assume. Her eyes filled. No, I found the box. A necklace. He gave it to someone else. I leaned back, bile rising in my throat. How many others? I don't know. At least 5. I found his messages. He's telling them all the same thing, that they're special, that he's building a future, that he's in love. Her voice cracked. He's running the same con on everyone. I should have felt vindicated. This was the man she'd thrown me away for. This was karma in real time, but all I felt was exhaustion. Why are you telling me this? Her hands shook so badly she had to set the phone down. Because he's dangerous. And because I think he's planning to hurt you. That got my attention. She leaned closer, whispering, He talks about you constantly. How you embarrassed him. How you ruined his business. How you need to be taught a lesson. He asked me where you keep your spare keys. If you have guns at the shop. He's been hanging out with ex-cons. Guys who do favors for money. My blood turned cold. This wasn't just reputation anymore. He was planning something physical. I waved Lou over. Change of plans, I said. We're reinforcing the shop. Tonight. What's going on? He asked. I explained. His expression hardened. That stupid son of a bitch. Does he have any idea who he's messing with? Apparently not. But he's about to learn. Vanessa grabbed my arm. Eli, I'm scared. I think he's going to hurt both of us. I studied her. The woman I'd married flickered there for a second, buried under layers of fear and regret. But the choices she'd made couldn't be undone. Here's what's going to happen, I said. You're going to pack your stuff and get out of his place. Tonight. Stay with your sister or get a hotel. But don't go back there. What about you? Derek wants to play games? He's about to find out the difference between playing and fighting. Lou grinned. He brought a knife to a gunfight. I stood, ready to leave. Vanessa's eyes brimmed with tears. I'm sorry, Eli. For everything. Your dad, the funeral, all of it. I was wrong. I paused, letting the words land, then shook my head. I know you are. But sorry doesn't change anything. I walked out, Lou beside me, the tavern door closing behind us like a verdict. Derek had started this game. He thought it was about reputation, clout, social media victories, but now it was about survival. And he was about to learn the truth. Games end, consequences don't, and I was done playing. Vanessa walked into Murphy's tavern looking like she hadn't slept in days. Gone was the perfectly styled hair, the polished designer outfit that always screamed money and control. She wore jeans that sagged at the knees, a stretched-out sweater, and no makeup. Her hands shook when she set her purse down on the table across from me. You look like hell, I said, because subtlety had never been my strong suit. Thanks, she muttered, her voice brittle. That's exactly what every woman wants to hear. Lou sat a few stools down at the bar, pretending to be invested in the muted baseball highlights on the overhead TV. He wasn't fooling anyone. He was there as insurance, close enough to step in if things went south, far enough away to make it look like I wasn't bringing backup to meet my ex-wife. The regulars barely glanced at us, just another couple hashing out their drama over cold beer and stale fries. So, I said after the waitress refilled my coffee, Derek's been stealing from you. Vanessa nodded. She pulled out her phone, hands trembling, and tapped until her banking app filled the screen. It started small, she said, eyes fixed on the phone like she was confessing to a priest. He said he needed money for gym equipment, just until his business loan came through. 500 here, 1,000 there. I thought I was helping, I leaned over. Her balance stared back at me. $800 in savings. When we'd split, she'd had nearly $15,000. Jesus, Vanessa. How much did you give him? Her voice was so low I almost didn't catch it. Almost everything. But that's not the worst part. She swiped again, opening her credit card statements. He's been using my cards for things I never authorized. Hotel rooms, dinners at places I can't afford, shopping trips. Look. She shoved the phone toward me. The charges were obscene. A 4-star hotel in Syracuse, another in Buffalo. A jewelry store receipt for $3,000. Restaurants where a single plate cost more than I spent on groceries in a week. He bought jewelry with your money? I asked. Not for me. Her voice cracked on the words. I found the receipt in his car. It was for a necklace. I saw her wearing it. Some other woman I stared at her, trying to process it. Part of me wanted to laugh. Derek, the self-proclaimed alpha, running the same scam on everyone around him, Vanessa included. But another part of me just felt tired. How many other women? I asked finally. I don't know. Maybe a lot. She scrolled to a folder of screenshots. Those photos in his office? I confronted him about them yesterday. He said they were old from before we met. But then I found messages on his phone. She passed me the phone again. Explicit texts, recent dates. Promises of forever, of passion, of loyalty. Copy-pasted lies delivered to at least 5 different women. He'd been running the same game on all of them. He's been telling all of us the same thing, Vanessa whispered. That we're special, that he's never felt this way before, that he wants to build a future together. But he's been saying it to everyone. The words should have felt like justice. She'd cheated on me with this guy, She'd chosen him over me. She'd mocked my father's death to impress him. And now here she was, hollow-eyed and shaking, realizing she'd been conned. But I didn't feel vindicated, just weary. Why are you telling me this? Because I think he's dangerous. She hesitated, then looked me dead in the eye. And because I think he's planning to hurt you. That made me sit back. What do you mean, hurt me? Her lip trembled. He's obsessed with you, Eli. He talks about you constantly, how you humiliated him, how you ruined his business, how you need to be taught a lesson. He's been asking questions about your shop, about your schedule, about where you live now. My chest tightened. What kind of questions? When you're usually there alone. Whether you have security cameras, whether you keep cash on the premises, she swallowed hard. And he's been hanging around with sketchy guys, ex-cons, drug dealers, people who do favors for money. The blood drained from my face. Derek wasn't just trying to trash my reputation anymore. He was escalating. Has he threatened me directly? Not in so many words, but yesterday he asked if I knew where you kept your spare keys. And he wanted to know if you had any guns at the shop. I didn't answer. I pulled out my phone instead and waved Lou over. Change of plans, I told him. We're closing early today, and we're installing more security. Lou's eyes narrowed as I explained. By the time I finished, his jaw was tight enough to crack teeth. That stupid son of a bitch, he growled. Does he have any idea who he's messing with? Apparently not, I said, but he's about to find out. Vanessa reached across the table, grabbing my sleeve like a drowning woman clutching driftwood. Eli, I'm scared. I think I made a huge mistake getting involved with him, and I think he's going to hurt both of us if we don't do something. I looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time in months. Beneath the exhaustion and fear, I glimpsed the woman I'd once loved, the one who'd laughed at my dumb jokes, the one who'd stood beside me in my father's garage rebuilding engines, the one who'd whispered about kids and futures and forever. But that woman was gone. She'd burned the bridge with her choices. She'd chosen Derek, chosen lies, chosen betrayal. Here's what's going to happen, I said. My voice was calm, but inside I felt the storm building. You're going to pack your things and get out of Derek's apartment. Tonight, you'll stay at your sister's or a hotel or anywhere else, just not there. Her eyes widened. What about you? Derek wants to play games? Fine. But he's been playing by social media rules. I'm about to introduce him to street rules. Her voice shook. What does that mean? Lou grinned from the bar, his voice carrying across the empty space. It means your boyfriend just brought a knife to a gunfight. I stood, sliding a 20 across the table for the untouched drinks. Vanessa's eyes shimmered with tears. For what it's worth, I told her, I'm sorry this happened to you. You didn't deserve to get scammed, but you did deserve to lose your marriage that cracked something inside her. She started crying, not the pretty, controlled tears she used to shed when she wanted sympathy, but ugly sobs that racked her whole body, the kind that strip a person bare. I know I screwed up, Eli, she gasped between sobs. I know I can't fix what I did to you. But I am sorry. About your dad. About the funeral. About all of it. The apology hit me like a punch to the chest. For a second, I almost let it in. Almost let the wall crumble. But then I remembered standing alone at my father's grave while she laughed with Derek at some party. And the wall went back up, stronger than before. I know you are, I said. But sorry doesn't change anything. I left her at the table, face buried in her hands, tears dripping onto the phone that had once been her shield. Lou followed me out, the tavern's door slamming shut behind us like a gavel. The cold evening air cleared my head. Vanessa was broken. Derek was dangerous. And me? I was ready. Derek had crossed a line when he targeted my shop. He'd made it personal when he bragged about humiliating me. He'd made it dangerous when he started asking about guns and keys. Now he was about to find out the one thing he never understood. You can lie, cheat, and steal. You can con people into believing you're more than you are. But when you come after me, when you come after what's mine, you stop playing games. You start playing for keeps. And I don't lose at that game. Lou and I spent Saturday evening turning my auto shop into a fortress. Security cameras in every corner, motion sensors on all the doors, and a few surprises Derek wouldn't expect. Lou had friends from his prison days who specialized in home security, and they owed him favors. "If this jackass wants to play tough guy," Lou said, installing a camera above the main entrance, "he's going to get a very expensive education." But I had a better idea than waiting for Derek to make his move. Sunday morning, I drove to Derek's apartment complex and waited. He lived in one of those modern buildings downtown, all glass and steel and monthly rent that cost more than most people's mortgages. The kind of place that attracted young professionals who wanted to feel sophisticated. Derek emerged at 10:30 a.m., wearing workout clothes and carrying a gym bag. He looked like he hadn't slept well either. Good. I followed him to his gym, staying far enough back to avoid detection. The place was nearly empty, not surprising, given Friday night's disaster and the social media fallout. Derek parked in his reserved spot and went inside. I waited 30 minutes, then walked in like I owned the place. Derek was behind the front desk, going through paperwork with a frustrated expression. He looked up when the door chimed, and his face went through several emotions at once: surprise, anger, and something that might have been fear. "What the hell are you doing here?" "Thought I'd check out the competition," I said, looking around the empty gym. "Business looks good." "Get out. You're not welcome here." "Actually, I think we need to have a conversation." "About boundaries." Derek stood up, trying to use his height and muscle mass to intimidate me. It might have worked on someone who hadn't spent 20 years in auto shops, dealing with drunk customers and angry creditors and the occasional tweaker looking for easy cash. "I don't have anything to say to you." "That's funny, because Vanessa tells me you've had a lot to say about me. Questions about my shop, my schedule, my security, almost like you're planning something stupid." His face flushed red. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you don't. Just like you don't know about the 5 other women you've been running the same scam on. Just like you don't know about the money you stole from my wife's accounts." "Ex-wife." "And she gave me that money. For a business loan that doesn't exist to buy jewelry for other women." "Yeah, that sounds like a gift." Derek stepped around the desk, moving closer. He had maybe 4 inches and 30 pounds on me, but I'd been in enough fights to know that size wasn't everything. "You need to back off, old man. You're out of your league here." "Old man?" I laughed. "Derek, I was fighting guys like you when you were still asking Mommy to cut your sandwiches into triangles." That hit home. His hands clenched into fists. "You think you're tough because you sabotaged my opening night? You think you're smart because you turned Vanessa against me? I didn't turn Vanessa against you. You did that all by yourself when you started stealing from her and screwing half the city behind her back. She's a lying bitch, just like you're a pathetic loser who can't handle losing his wife to a better man." That was the line he shouldn't have crossed. I moved faster than he expected, grabbing his wrist and twisting his arm behind his back in one smooth motion. Lou had taught me that move years ago, back when we'd had to deal with a customer who thought he could intimidate us into free work. Derek yelped and tried to pull away, but I had leverage and experience on my side. "Here's what's going to happen," I said, keeping his arm pinned. "You're going to stay away from my shop, my employees, and my business. You're going to stop asking questions about me, and you're going to tell your sketchy friends that the job is canceled." "What job? I don't know what you're—" I twisted his arm a little harder. "Don't insult my intelligence, Derek. Vanessa told me everything. The questions, the planning, the guys you've been talking to. You want to hurt me? Fine. But you better make sure you kill me, because if you don't, I'm going to make Friday night look like a birthday party." I let him go and stepped back. Derek rubbed his arm, glaring at me with pure hatred. "This isn't over." "Yes, It is, because here's what you don't understand about this city, Derek. I've been here my whole life. I know everyone. Everyone knows me, and everyone knows you're a scamming piece of shit who steals from women and ruins businesses. You want to keep playing games? Go ahead. But remember, I'm the guy who destroyed your grand opening with a phone call. What do you think I can do when I really put my mind to it? I walked toward the door, then turned back. Oh, and Derek? Vanessa's done with you. She figured out what you really are. So whatever you were planning to do to get back at me for stealing her, you might want to rethink that strategy. I left him standing there, furious and humiliated, in his empty gym. But I wasn't done yet. That afternoon, I made a series of phone calls to the women Derek had been scamming, sharing screenshots of his text messages and proof of his financial fraud. To his business partners, letting them know about the theft and the multiple relationships. To his landlord, providing evidence of the illegal activities being planned on the property. By Monday morning, Derek's world was collapsing. 3 women had filed police reports for fraud. His business partner had dissolved their partnership and demanded immediate repayment of loans. His landlord had started eviction proceedings. And Vanessa had moved back in with her sister, finally understanding that she'd been just another mark in Derek's long con. I should have felt satisfied. Justice served, problem solved, life back to normal. But Derek wasn't the type to go quietly. Tuesday evening, as I was closing up the shop, Lou came running in from the parking lot. "Boss, we got company. 3 cars, maybe 8 guys, and they don't look like customers." I looked out the window and saw Derek's BMW parked across the street, along with 2 other cars I didn't recognize. Men were getting out, and they looked like exactly the kind of people Vanessa had warned me about. "Call the cops," I told Lou. "Already did. But it's going to be at least 10 minutes. Derek and his friends were crossing the street, heading for my shop. He'd decided that if he couldn't intimidate me or hurt my business through sabotage, he'd do it the direct way. Time for the final lesson in why you don't start wars with people who have nothing left to lose. 8 men walked through the front door of my shop like they owned the place. Derek led the pack, flanked by guys who looked like they'd learned their social skills in county lockup. The kind of muscle you rent by the hour when you need someone hurt, but don't want to get your own hands dirty. "Shop's closed," I said, not moving from behind the counter. "Not for us," Derek replied, his confidence restored now that he had backup. "We're here to collect what you owe me." "And what would that be? My business, my reputation, my girlfriend? You've cost me everything, old man. Time to pay up." Lou stepped out from behind a partially disassembled Camaro, holding a tire iron in one hand and his phone in the other. "Cops are on their way, boys. Might want to rethink this strategy." One of Derek's friends, a skinny guy with prison tattoos covering his arms, laughed. 10 minutes is a long time, Grandpa." "Lot can happen in 10 minutes. That's when I smiled. "You're right," I said. "A lot can happen. Lou, hit the lights." Lou flipped a switch, and the shop went dark except for the emergency lighting. But more importantly, it activated the security system we'd installed over the weekend. Every door locked automatically, steel shutters dropped over the windows, and a silent alarm went off at 3 different security companies. "What the hell?" Derek started to say, but I cut him off. "Gentlemen, welcome to Brooks Auto Body. You're now locked in a secure facility with 2 men who have absolutely nothing to lose and every reason to make sure you don't leave the same way you came in." The skinny guy rushed me first, swinging a crowbar he'd pulled from somewhere. I sidestepped and let him run face first into the steel support beam behind me. He dropped like a bag of cement. Lou took out 2 more with the tire iron, moving with the kind of efficiency that comes from years of prison yard fights. These weren't hardened criminals. They were street-level thugs who'd never faced real opposition. Derek pulled a knife, which was his second mistake of the evening. His first mistake was coming here at all. "You're going to pay for what you did to me," he snarled, waving the blade like he was in a movie. "Derek," I said, picking up a 3-foot breaker bar from my tool bench. "You have no idea what you've walked into." He lunged at me with the knife. I brought the breaker bar down on his wrist, and the blade went skittering across the concrete floor. Derek screamed and grabbed his arm. "That's for stealing from my wife," I said. I hit him in the knee with the bar. He went down hard. "That's for threatening my business." Another hit, this one to his ribs. "And that's for being stupid enough to bring a knife to a mechanic's shop." The remaining guys were backing toward the door, but the electronic locks weren't budging. They were trapped in here with us, and the reality of their situation was starting to sink in. "Look, man," one of them said, "this was Derek's idea. We don't have any problem with you." "You made it my problem when you walked through that door," I replied, "but I'm feeling generous tonight." "You've got two choices. You can try to fight your way out, or you can sit down, shut up, and wait for the police to arrive." They chose option 2. Derek was curled up on the floor, moaning and holding his ribs. The skinny guy was still unconscious. Lou had zip-tied the hands of the 2 guys he'd taken down, using the restraints we kept for securing car parts during transport. "You can't do this," Derek gasped. "This is assault. I'll have you arrested." "Really?" "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like 8 men broke into my business after hours with weapons, and I defended myself. Lou, did you remember to turn on the security cameras?" "Every angle, boss, high definition, color, with audio." "Good. Because I want there to be a clear record of what happened here. How Derek Hale organized a criminal conspiracy to assault a local business owner. How he brought weapons and hired thugs to intimidate and harm someone who'd never done anything but defend himself from harassment." The police arrived 12 minutes later, followed by paramedics and Detective Rick Sloan, who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else in the world. "Jesus Christ, Eli," Sloan said, surveying the scene. "What the hell happened here?" I handed him a thumb drive containing the security footage. "Home invasion, Detective. 8 men armed with weapons, breaking into my business after hours. I defended myself and my employee using reasonable force." Sloan looked at Derek, who was being loaded onto a stretcher, then at the unconscious guy, then at the other 6 men sitting zip-tied against the wall. "And you just happened to have security measures that locked them in?" "I just happened to upgrade my security system after receiving threats from Mr. Hale about harming my business and my person. The system worked exactly as designed." Derek tried to say something from the stretcher, but his words were slurred from pain medication. The paramedics wheeled him out, followed by his unconscious friend. The other 6 men were arrested on charges of breaking and entering, criminal conspiracy, and assault with deadly weapons. Derek would face additional charges of organizing the attack, plus the fraud charges the other women had filed. Detective Sloan took my statement, reviewed the security footage, and shook his head. "You know this is going to be a paperwork nightmare, right?" "I know Derek Hale made the mistake of bringing street rules to a fight with someone who grew up on these streets," I replied. "Play stupid games, win stupid prizes." By Thursday, the story was all over local news and social media. But this time, the narrative was different. Derek was the villain, the con artist who'd stolen from multiple women, organized a criminal attack on a local business, and gotten his ass kicked by a grieving widower who just wanted to be left alone. Vanessa called me that evening. "I saw the news," she said. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine. Derek won't be bothering either of us anymore." "Eli, Vanessa, don't. We're done. The divorce will be final in a few weeks. Derek's going to prison, and you get to start over with a clean slate. That's more than you deserved, but it's what you're getting." "I know. I just wanted you to know that I understand now. What I lost. What I threw away." "Yeah, well, understanding doesn't change anything." I hung up and went back to rebuilding the engine I'd been working on before Derek's visit. Some things could be fixed with the right tools and enough patience. Others were broken beyond repair. 3 months later, Derek pleaded guilty to fraud, criminal conspiracy, and assault charges. He got 5 years in state prison and restitution orders for 6 different women. His gym closed permanently, and his downtown apartment was seized to pay his debts. Vanessa moved to Syracuse for a fresh start. We never spoke again. My shop's business actually improved after the incident. Turns out people like supporting a local business owner who stands up to bullies and criminals. The security footage went viral on social media, with the caption, "Don't mess with mechanics." Lou framed a screenshot from the video showing Derek on the ground with a broken wrist, captioned, "Employee of the Month." And me? I learned that some bridges are worth burning, some fights are worth having, and some people need to learn the hard way that actions have consequences. Derek wanted to destroy my world because I wouldn't let him steal my wife and ruin my business without a fight. Instead, I destroyed his. The end. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching.